What's going on, everyone? Phil here for KO Gaming, and I'm about to review Mighty Number 9. I wish I could just sit here and do this like a normal review and not have to tell you about the sordid tale of how this game came to pass, but sadly, I find myself surrounded by so much pre-existing negativity, misconception, and just overall bad feelings about the game as I sit down to film my own review, that I feel that I have to cover the background so you understand the situation surrounding the game before I finally share my thoughts on it. So here we go with the backstory of the development of Mighty Number 9. Meet Keiji Inafune, the creative director and creator of Mega Man and Rockman over the years. In the 1980s and early 1990s, Mega Man was huge. Publisher Capcom pumped out our 2D side-scrolling friend in many different versions and many different iterations on various consoles, starting with the Nintendo Entertainment System and/or Famicom, spanning 3 to 4 console generations and basically becoming synonymous with a AAA title within gaming culture. Then the 2000s happened, and for whatever reason, publisher Capcom decided not to make any more Mega Man games, leaving rabid fans angry, and just basically wondering why this classic gaming character was being ignored by the gaming publisher. It actually got to the point where Twitter accounts for Capcom were blatantly insulting fans, saying it was their fault that no other Mega Man games were being made, and Keiji Inafune finally had enough. He left the company and decided to go out on his own, starting up a new startup in Japan, a new venture to create the spiritual successor to the Mega Man series in a game that would be called Mighty Number 9, but he needed help, and so he put his game up on Kickstarter to revolutionary results. Mighty Number 9 overnight became a Kickstarter sensation and basically a success story which Kickstarter to this day uses to convince other game developers to come and raise funds on their site. Originally only seeking to raise $900,000 budget, the game eventually reached over $4 million. Unprecedented and absolutely out of control. The entire situation was a razz in the face of Capcom by longtime Mega Man fans. Hey, if Capcom's gonna blame us for the reason that Mega Man won't come out with a new game, let's just fund the actual creator of the game to go ahead and make the spiritual successor and screw Capcom. And that's basically what happened. However, how much success is too much success? Because as Mighty Number 9 raised more and more and more money on Kickstarter, and it exceeded goal after goal, the game devs kept adding stretch goals, such as, let's do a challenge mode, let's have a boss rush mode, a new game plus mode, let's have online capabilities, let's port this game to every single console possible, including not only the Xbox 360 and PS3, but the PS4, the Xbox One, the Wii U, handhelds, you name it. Game devs promised the world for every little bit amount of money that was raised, and by the end of it, they had really promised so much that I think they actually had a big problem delivering. And if you want any kind of concrete proof of that, the game was delayed after delay after delay for reason after reason, twice supposedly because they could not get the online implementation to actually work, and finally this week the game was released to the public. So, all of that is a huge and sordid backstory. It's a lot of reason for people to be upset, especially if you were one of the financial backers of this game on Kickstarter and you ended up waiting for a game that was originally supposed to come out sometime 2 years ago, then last year, then again this year, and you're waiting and waiting. Oh, and by the way, the launch of the game has been a disaster. Kickstarter backers are supposed to be getting codes in the mail. Their codes don't work. People who bought the game on the Wii U are reporting that the game is actually bricking their consoles. There's a ton of problems with the launch of Mighty Number 9 after this long and problematic development process. So it's easy to see why there's so much controversy on the internet and why so many people are upset about the entire thing, especially because with $4 million being raised, the game developers promising, oh, not only are we going to do this, but if the game's successful, we're going to have an anime series, and we're going to have tie-ins, and we're going to have a sequel, and then the game finally launches with all of these technical problems. You can basically understand why there's such an uproar. So because of all of this negativity regarding the development and launch of Mighty No. 9, it's very hard right now on the internet to hear anything whatsoever positive about the game. In fact, just searching Google, good luck finding anyone who's not completely slamming it. But what does that have to do with the actual game itself? And the honest, logical answer here? Nothing! I don't care about the development process, I don't care about the Kickstarter investment, I don't care about any of that. I'm an objective gamer and reviewer. I purchased Mighty No. 9 earlier this week on the PlayStation 4 for the cost of $19.99. I got a game that was delivered to me that basically was what the game devs were promising. A spiritual successor to the classic Mega Man gameplay. In some ways this game evolved, in some ways it's a step back. I really feel that this was kind of what Inafune wanted to do with his classic franchise. So right now I'm going to objectively weigh the pros and cons of Mighty No. 9 for you without any of this background noise in my head, because I feel that's the only way to actually do an objective review, and I really don't feel that many people have done that up to this point. Mighty No. 9 is the story of a world in peril. All of the robots that normally would be helping out and doing helpful things for humans have gone absolutely haywire, and it's up to 2 scientists to figure out why. Beck is a robot created by Dr. White who has the unique ability to absorb the capabilities and AIs of other robots after he stunned them with his arm cannon. So it's up to him to go throughout 8 different stages, fighting 8 other mighty robots, trying to take them over and stop their corruption in their programming by absorbing their AI so they can be reprogrammed, as well as trying to shut down any minor robots that are malfunctioning which he might find along the way. If you're not really surprised by this and it seems familiar, it's probably because it's to a T the plotline of the original Rockman and Mega Man X series from the 1980s and 90s. I mean, they really heavily borrowed from that plotline. Can you blame Inafune for borrowing from himself? Not really. So the plotline of the game is very basic, and there are going to be some cutscenes in between different stages that kind of flesh out the plot a little more. There are a pretty complex cast of characters with 3 or 4 different characters who seem like they could either be good or bad, and there's a couple twists along the way. What it is what it is. It's a basic plot line thrown into what's meant to be a 2D side-scrolling action game. It's not amazing, it's certainly not terrible, it's just there and it serves the purpose. So now let's talk gameplay. Mighty No. 9 actually takes a lot of things heavily from the previous Mega Man games, as well as implements some new things to give it a unique and modern twist and make it a little bit different. Beck has an arm cannon which you can shoot. He also has a dash and a low dash by holding down in the dash button, as well as an air dash. This dash is infinite, meaning you can infinitely air dash back and forth in the air and basically stay up there almost the entire time. This is completely different from anything in any previous Mega Man game, and it definitely is a new kind of gameplay for a 2D side-scroller. The goal is to shoot things until they change color, then you'll dash into them, which will basically negate them, and Beck will gain some kind of a boost. If it's green, he'll get a speed boost. If it's red, his shots will actually become a little bit more powerful. If it's yellow, it means that if you have any kind of special gun or ability, that you'll have more of that energy for a limited amount of time, and so these abilities will actually help you during the course of the game. But I'll be honest with everyone, I don't think I ever actually planned or cared about what ability I was absorbing. The gameplay of Mighty No. 9 is wash, rinse, and repeat, shoot everything in front of you, dash into it when it changes color, and keep on moving. There really is no kind of strategy. Oh, I need to shoot that one guy to get this damage boost so that I can go down here and do something. No, none of that exists. You just run around dashing and shooting everything, trying to make difficult jumps, trying to dash across chasms with instant death spikes. All the stuff that you would expect from classic Mega Man style gameplay is in this game to a T. It doesn't really try to do anything too adventurous or different. In fact, during the boss fights against the 8 robot masters, you're going to be doing kind of a classic one-on-one battle by which they'll be using some kind of special abilities and you can use a strategy to beat them. Once you kill your first robot master, you'll absorb their power a la previous Mega Man and Rockman games, and you can then use that power in future boss fights. For every power, there's one boss for that will be their weakness, and it basically completely negates their ability to do any kind of effective strategy in the fight, making it incredibly easy to win, and you can wipe the floor with them and then go on to the next stage. Mighty Number 9 actually takes this formula and makes it even more easy than previous Mega Man games where you kind of had to guess which ability would affect which boss, because when you actually load up the game to the new stage, there'll be a little box that says advice, and if that appears, it means that you've already defeated the Robot Master, who's the weakness for that stage. All you need to then do is go into the stage, and that Robot Master will actually help you out during the fight by doing something to change the stage. For example, in the ice stage, the Fire Master will go through it and melt a lot of ice things that may have been obstacles in your way, making the stage incredibly easy. And the final boss fight, which actually would have been a lot harder, also becomes more easy. And so, that formula of killing a master, figuring out whose weakness that master is, and then taking them on next, makes the actual original 8 masters of the game incredibly easy to coast through. What I will say is this: out of all the first 8 stages of the game, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 of them are a little bit more challenging than others. The air stage has a lot of aerial platforming that can lead to instant deaths. That's a little bit tricky, and the stage seems to be a little bit harder than the others. The fire stage had a few points that were challenging, and by far the ice stage is probably the toughest because it has ledges which you cannot grab. That is one new addition in Mighty Number 9 that should be called out. When you're actually doing platforming, Beck will actually grab the edge of ledges. Mega Man was never able to do this, but Beck can, and it's a modernization of the game engine. However, on the ice stage, there's lots of platforms where you can't do this. Since you're not expecting that, it's going to lead to tons of cheap deaths, and it probably is overall the most challenging of them. But I'll be honest with everyone, being that I've played all the classic Mega Man games, I understand the classic gameplay of the games, I was able to run through all 8 Robot Masters in about maybe 3 hours time, with only minimal amount of deaths and maybe having to restart a stage once or twice. So for me, the game was almost overly easy, and by the way, I want to point out, I did not change the amount of stock lives that I had. I left it at the default 2, not upped it to 9 like a lot of people who are playing this game are doing, and I didn't do anything to kind of mess with the difficulty. I just kind of ran through the game utilizing the boss weaknesses, and I was able to beat the 8 Robot Masters pretty easily. I've heard a lot of people on the internet are complaining the game is too hard. I don't know where they're coming from, because as a base game, it's not that difficult at all, at least in the initial 8 stages. Now, once you beat those first 8 stages and you get to the final 3, we're talking a large difficulty spike. In one stage, you play as Roll, who doesn't even have most of the offensive capabilities of Beck, but is still expected to fend off enemies in different ways. There's one part of the stage where you have to hover and air dash through this spiky corridor that will insta-kill you if you even touch a spike. It's incredibly cheap and difficult, and it really annoyed the hell out of me. Similarly, another stage where you have to play as Beck has a similar style corridor with tons of instant deaths. It's not as hard as the one with Roll, but it's still kind of annoying. And then there's the final stage, which is almost a gauntlet of patience. You're going to be trying to dodge instant death spikes. You're going to be hovering over this giant pit where you need to use a propeller to get yourself across. By the way, a game mechanic you've never even used in the game up to this point. They really made it so that this final stage was a grueling challenge of 2D platforming skill. I'm not going to spoil the final boss for you, it's already been all over the internet, but the final boss also is a gauntlet with multiple forms, and if you die to him too many times, yup, you gotta do this entire final stage over from the beginning. I had to do this about 4 times before I finally bested the final boss of the game, and all in all, if I didn't have to do that, I probably would have beaten it in about 20 to 30 minutes. Instead, it took me over an hour to beat this final stage. That was pretty annoying. As you're beating the campaign of the game, you'll also unlock extra content, which includes a challenge mode for single player, as well as a cooperative online challenge mode, an online competitive 2-player race mode, and a boss rush mode. All of these modes are new and interesting content for the game, especially if you really enjoy this style of gameplay and you want to challenge yourself for certain things like dash through a stage through a certain period of time but you can't use your blaster, kill a certain amount of enemies within a certain amount of time but you can't lose any health. It's that kind of challenges. The boss rush mode is exactly what you would expect. You're going to try to fight all of the bosses back to back with only 2 full heals remaining, so it's pretty difficult to try to take out 9 bosses without ever having to die. It's challenging, and for those who like this kind of gameplay, it's probably going to be one of the things you're going to want to best. But the online modes at least in my experience, were barely, if at all, functional on the PlayStation 4. I was only able to ever play one. It was the cooperative challenge mode where I teamed up with someone who controlled roll. We dashed through a stage, and predictably, the stage was incredibly easy because 2 players, both spamming guns all over the place, are able to destroy everything pretty much quickly, and we beat it in record time. It wasn't a challenge at all. After that, I could never get another online capable match to work at all, neither in the competitive or the cooperative modes. So all those delays that Mighty No. 9 suffered trying to get these online modes working apparently didn't, because I'm sorry, I tried for over 20 minutes to get matches. I tried matches of the earlier sets, the later sets, the easier difficulty, the harder difficulty, and nothing worked. I don't know what's up with it. Maybe there's just no one playing it, but for me, the online just was not functional. Now let's talk graphics and sound, because a lot of people are criticizing it, and you know what? I kinda have to agree with you. As I played Mighty No. 9, I was definitely taken aback by the art style. I thought for sure that they would go for a more hyper-realistic look with lots of shadowing and all kinds of visual effects, and that's just not what they went for. The best comparison I can make for this game is that it looks like the old classic anime series Astro Boy. And that's actually kind of funny because the original Mega Man was based on Astro Boy, so in a lot of ways that makes sense, but I'm not sure that's exactly what everyone was looking for the spiritual successor / continuation of the Mega Man series. I definitely have to say the visual style was not my cup of tea, and I do have to criticize it. Also, the music has always been a quintessential part of the Mega Man franchise. I can't really even think of a Mega Man game that I've ever played where after I played it, I wasn't caught humming a tune from the game, or it wasn't stuck in my head. You know, those Mega Man tunes are some of the ones that lived with us for all of our lives. I could still, to this day, think of a few classic tunes from Mega Man 2 and 3 that are ingrained in my brain forever. That never really happens in Mighty No. 9. The soundtrack's passable, but it's certainly nothing memorable, and after I've beaten the game, I realized besides the title theme, I don't think I remember any music from this game whatsoever. That is a huge dichotomy. So real talk, for $20, if you purchase Mighty No. 9, you're going to get about a 3 to 5 hour long campaign featuring 8 robot bosses and 3 additional stages. You're going to get challenge mode, boss rush mode, and a few online modes that may or may not even work for you depending on what console you purchased the game on. You're going to get graphics that are kind of questionable and music that really isn't memorable, tied in with some gameplay that does actually feel like a natural evolution of Mega Man, although things like the Mega Buster not being able to charge are definitely questionable choices and feel like it maybe went back a few steps. So it's a mixed bag. Now, if any other game told you for $20 you were going to get a game that plays similar to Mega Man and has awesome robot bosses and you're going to be able to play it and feel the nostalgia factor, you would probably be ecstatic. But because Mighty No. 9 raised $4 million on Kickstarter, people just want to crap all over it and say, well, that's not acceptable. For $4 million, it should have been a much better game with groundbreaking graphics and amazing online capabilities and blah, 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 blah. And the bottom line is, nothing factors into the review of that accord. Because this is a game for $20, I got 5 hours of gameplay, and if I really wanted to, I could go back and get more replayability out of it. I purposely chose not to because I'm not the kind of person that likes to go back and play challenge modes and such. I compare this directly to Mega Man 9 and 10 from several years back, both of which were released digitally over the internet, and were kind of the same deal. They were natural advancements of the Mega Man franchise with new bosses, throwback games. They were sold for around $20, and guess what? Nobody complained about those games. It's only because of the $4 million that was raised that anyone is putting up a stink about Mighty No. 9, and it's unacceptable. If you're going to be an objective reviewer, you have to review what's in the game for what you paid, not what everyone put into it via crowdfunding. And let's be real here. Those people who did invest in the game via Kickstarter, if you invested a certain amount of money, and you feel that you didn't get what you deserved, especially if you're one of those people who your codes don't work and you can't play the game, or if you cannot play it on Wii U because it bricked your console, then you have the right to complain. But the vast majority of people who are hating on Mighty No. 9 right now are hating just for the sake of jumping on this drama bandwagon, the $4 million game that could and then came out and wasn't amazing. I wasn't expecting an amazing game for $20 from a brand new indie studio. I think people basically expected too much from a new development team who I think overpromised and underdelivered on all of their Kickstarter stretch goals. But that doesn't factor into a review score. What factors in is what I played, which actually wasn't so bad, and as a longtime fan of Mega Man, I actually very much enjoyed playing the campaign, despite some of the frustrations that I had. So all factors considered, objectively speaking, Mighty No. 9 is not a bad game. It's certainly not a groundbreaking, amazing AAA quality game, but for a $20 price tag from an indie studio, it's quite a damn good one, and I very much enjoyed it. For me, I see Mighty No. 9 as a first step in the right direction, proving you don't need a giant game publisher to throw millions of dollars at you and grant you their permission and all their time constraints in order to put out a game as quality as something that's been put out by them in the past. Mighty No. 9 is as good as any of the classic Mega Man games. The problem is people are being overly critical for unfair reasons. But for what I experienced, I actually rate Mighty No. 9 a 7.5 out of 10. About 75%. With a few tweaks, with an improved graphical engine, maybe with a few other things, for example, the refinement of that absorption engine, which really isn't very effective in this game. If they could just refine a few of those things, this game could be absolutely great. But the problem is people aren't being honest because of the bullshit. In fact, the biggest dishonest thing on the internet right now that almost every major gaming news site has put out is saying that Keiji Inafune said, well, it's better than nothing. False. That's what the translator said on the live stream. That was his interpretation of what Inafune was saying on the stream, adding in Americanisms. That is not what he said. Obviously, he would have liked the game to be better. He's probably not 100% happy with the final product, just like all of us. But certainly it's not a piece of crap, and I'm tired of people shitting on it when they really don't have any grounds to. The bottom line is, if anything, this should be a lesson to those who want to invest in anything on Kickstarter. Understand that a game's final product is not going to be directly representative by how much money you throw at it, but instead on the actual ability of the game development team. In this case, the development team of Mighty No. 9 were brand new. They were trying to implement ideas from a long-time game creator. They didn't have the capability to make everything happen the way that they wanted to. They overpromised on the Kickstarter goals. They underdelivered. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they cannot make a better game in the future, but it seems like everyone has completely written these guys off. Enough is enough. I'm going to be honest, I like the game. I hope they do make a sequel, but at this point, with all the negativity out there, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. That's a goddamn shame. Whew, well, that was a lot to get off my chest, and that is it for my review of Mighty No. 9. I sure hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider giving this video a like here on YouTube, as well as telling your other friends about it so that they'll check out an honest review of this game. In addition, please consider checking the description of the video, where I have a direct link to my raw playthrough of Mighty No. 9 on my gameplay channel, DSP Gaming, as well as my Amazon associate and Patreon links as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later for another honest game review. Peace out.